Not real men. Not real men. Not real men. Not real men. Not real.
Hello and welcome to Not Real Men, a podcast about masculinity by people who are pretty unsure about masculinity for a few reasons. I'm Laser. You may know me as a gay guy with a vagina and a girlfriend.
And I'm Colin. I'm a non-binary person with dwarfism who constantly feels like Gonzo.
And today's guest, we've got him. It's the president of Trav Nation, podcaster known for Schmanners, My Brother, and Me, and the Adventure Zone, author, king of my heart. It's Travis McElroy. Hi, Travis.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Travis McElroy. I'm a cis het dude.
Well,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, everybody.
Yes.
No.
How dare you?
I know.
Listen, it's good. I think those are the people we want to have on this podcast because I personally love hearing about what it was like being a man your whole life.
Oh, I don't know that. I can't tell you that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that is my first question, Travis. When did you know you were a man?
Well, I remember driving that Ford truck for the first time, slamming a super is Coors still good? Where are we at on Coors?
I don't know.
Other toxic men, where are we at?
I think PBR is the go-to now.
The thing is like, so I'm 40 years old, right? And growing up, there was never real, like, gender wasn't really, especially I grew up in West Virginia. So gender wasn't really a conversation in that way. Like, there wasn't, at least for me, any kind of like self-reflection. I don't ever remember having issues with it, right? I don't ever remember feeling out of place in my gender, but I never really had the thought of like, am I a man? Am I a boy? Like, it just was, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until like much later in life when I started to, and I think a lot of America became aware of, a lot of the world did, about, gender as not just a fixed point, but as a kind of like concept, as a variable, that I was like, yeah, it just always makes sense. Even now when I think about it, it's not like, I don't know. No, like I am. In my head, it's kind of like that question people ask when it's like, do you dream in color? Do you dream in black and white? Like, in my head, I refer to myself with he, him pronouns. Yeah. Like, it just is not that I think in third person a lot. That
Travis
would be
is awake now. Travis will take on his day.
He is hungry. That is not really necessarily the way my thought process works, but it wouldn't be surprising if you know me.
Yeah. No, I would more just do Travis hungry. Travis
hungry. Yeah, just for efficiency, if nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so fascinating. What is it like to never question the gender? That sounds fun.
Well, so I will say this, and not at all to be like, who's got it worse? Me, a cishet dude. But there is an element to it though of like, there are many things that I would say are characteristics of myself, that are habits of myself, that are behaviors of myself, that are not what one might call traditionally masculine, right? And so those things, especially growing up and it being like, oh, you're like, I'm very expressive in my hands, I'm very flamboyant in my speaking patterns, in my actions, in my dress. And like, oh man, there were so many people, especially in college, who were like, listen, if you're gay, you can tell us. I was like, I'm not. I promise. And they're like, okay, whenever you're ready. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, man. Yeah. And like that kind of stuff did give me a weird, like, what am I missing that maybe there's, I just don't know. I just don't want to kiss boys. And because of the fact that it was like, I am a man, and it was like, okay, then why do you act that way? Yeah. I'm like, I don't know I don't know that one, guys. I can't tell you that one.
Yeah. Ooh. Colin, do you feel like there were there were things in, I mean, also you're very queer, so.
Did everyone in my childhood ever use the word gay as an insult? Yes. So, yeah, I had long hair. I played violin. I was in jazz band. I was in theater club. All of those things
are cool.
They are, but like back in Southern Maryland, and at that point, they were like in that weird nebulous period of being nerdy and being cool before all the 2010s movies were made about how the nerds are actually the cool ones.
Yeah,
which was such a weird turn. I've talked about this so many times in like the last 10 years, but I remember like when the first Madden video game came out, and suddenly people were just openly discussing video games like in the lunchroom and being like, we're allowed to just talk about the video games we play now. Like, this is weird. Me and my friends have hushed conversations about The Sims or whatever, and you guys are just like openly discussing playing video games. That's wild. That's wild.
Yeah. Trav, and you don't have to answer this question, but I'm very curious. I feel like everybody knows you're the strongest brother.
Yeah,
like,
physically, emotionally, mentally, yes.
But also, I do feel like you're the most flamboyant in terms of gender. Do those relate to each other in your head at all, or is that something?
See, here's the thing. There was a time I remember when I was like 22, having a full-blown existential crisis, about to graduate college, and realizing that I did not know what of my personality was truly, honestly me, and what was like, I'm mimicking behaviors of people around me. I got into this movie because the people I know like this movie. I watch this TV show because I make fun of people because people I know of like give each other a hard time as part of their friendship group, like that kind of thing. And so since then, I've kind of been trying to think about myself and find the things that's just an inherently true part of me that isn't for anybody else, it's just for me. And like one of those things is that I am a peacock. And it just like that popped into my head one day, and I was like, yeah, that's just true on a lot of different levels. But I like being kind of flashy and showy in that way. I'm also kind of loud and annoying. And so like those two things together, that's a peacock.
I've been chased out of a parking lot by a peacock before.
Yeah, they could be real dicks.
It was kind of a delightful experience, but yes, very scary.
Way better than being chased by a turkey, which has happened to me. and so like that kind of thing, I like accessorizing. I like being colorful. I also think, as long as we're talking in gendered terms, right? Yes. I don't think that this belongs exclusively to the concept of masculinity, but I think being flashy and being flamboyant should be considered a masculine trait. For a long time it was, right? When you like look back throughout history, the idea of like makeup and high heels and lace and like flamboyant clothing, that it was very manly to like roll up, fully made up and like with a high heel and, a lacy handkerchief and whatever. And this idea of being like drab and I don't know, conservative in your dress is fairly recent for dudes. And I think it's so weak, frankly. I think it like, if you want to dress that way, great. But the fear of, if I dress to impress, if I dress in a bold way, I'm afraid to do that, right? Like I remember once seeing, this was like a decade ago, somebody like tweet this dude who's, a toxic male, like influencer guy. I can't remember, might have been a politician or something, about like how to, be a pickup artist or whatever. And one of the things he said is like, now don't be afraid to wear colors. Like, check this out. And it was a picture of him wearing like a blue plaid shirt. And I was like, okay, man, looks straight out of Land's End. I was like, cool, man. That ain't it. The thing you're talking about, that's not it, bud. Yeah. And like that kind of thing, I just think like this thing of, I have kids now, just as of this second. And, BB is like 7 years old. And so like the concept of bullying is like something we talk a lot about. And my friends have kids, some of them older, and I've been talking to them about bullies for a while. And the thing is kind of what I learned and what I've been trying to pass on to them is that there's a period of time when you are a kid where all you want to do is blend in because you don't want to get picked on. And so you start like smoothing off every like interesting edge of yourself to try to just be as quote unquote normal as possible. And then when they see people who aren't doing that, it makes them feel really bad about themselves
Yeah.
And so they kind of have to bully, because if that person isn't wrong, if that person isn't weird, then they are.
Yeah. They're giving up themselves for no reason.
Right. Exactly. And so when they see somebody who's like, you know, a dude wearing a sequin jacket or whatever, it's like, either I make fun of them or they are more interesting than I am.
I have so much to say about what you just said, but I also wanted, Colin, I know you've talked about the shifts in your relationship. It seems like, or like with other people and wanting to fit in on very similar lines to this.
So yes, there's a lot of like existing as a queer person when I was younger was like, oh, the guys are doing this, so I need to like this or pretend to like this, or like, because I already have enough that I'm getting bullied for. I don't need, that's just inherently part of how I cannot hide myself from the world. Like, I can't do this thing as well. I don't need another thing to be bullied for, basically. Yeah. And you're saying something about how like figuring out what I like and what is who I am, absent of all these social pressures and things that we are like having to either performatively or actually embody as part of masculinity. And for a long time, I think when people would have a stereotype about me, or like I would act in direct opposition to that,
whether or not that was what you really
did. Like I had a phobia a long time of being thought as immature, so like I wouldn't wear like flashy, colorful things because that was associated with like, oh, when you're a kid, you're allowed to like wear bright colors and stuff, but you need to be a mature adult when you're 11. So people don't make fun of you. So like wearing the dark, like that kind of like black, navy blue stuff to just be like, I don't need another thing. And then I had a realization a few years back that's like, well, if I'm acting in opposition of a thing, then I'm still operating within the guidelines of it, even though it's on the opposite side of the coin.
Oh yeah.
And so there's like a whole, 358 degrees that aren't that degree and that degree of things that I can inhabit.
That's such a great point, because that's the thing that I keep kind of coming back to, especially I've been hyper fixating for like the last year watching like YouTube essayists and commentary people like break down like a lot of like toxic male, like influencer alpha male dudes. And the thing that always gets me is like, completely unironically, what they are talking about is like what they are afraid to be perceived as.
Yeah.
Right. So instead of it being about, I'm comfortable being myself, I'm strong in my own opinions, I'm open-minded and willing to change when I grow. It's all about like, I want to be seen as strong. I want to be seen as in charge. I want to be seen as incredibly straight or whatever. Yeah. And it's just like, well, yeah, but all that's born out of fear, right? Yeah. Like you're afraid of being seen as weak. You're afraid of not being in charge. You're afraid of being not seen as like incredibly like heterosexual. Like all of that stuff is like you're operating, instead of it being like confidence comes from being who you are and not trying to fit into a mold of this thing. But that's not what they push. It's such weak behavior.
It's this one with the very first like, month or so that I was like, okay, I'm going to just do this man thing and see what happens. One of the things that I did was I went to a large show at San Diego Comic-Con hosted by the McElroy brothers. And I went into both the women's room and the men's room at that event. And that's when I realized how terrified of each other men are. Like, I was like, oh, this women's room is full of everybody compliment each other and talking about their shoes and like being having a good time. And the men's room was silent. And it's like, are we so scared of, I don't know, being perceived as gay, being beat up? Like, I understand those are like real fears, but it's so much more intense than I thought it was.
I think sometimes I feel like at this point we've lost sight of what it is we are afraid of being perceived as. Yeah. And it's just boiled down to like being afraid of being perceived.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like, oh, I'd rather not get attention from other men. I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
Like even a compliment of like, that's a great shirt. Like, oh, cool. Like, I don't know how to respond to that. Yeah, you, man. All right, bud. Like and so it's so interesting to me how much insecurity there is, like how toxic masculinity and insecurity and fear are so hand in hand. Like it's never toxic masculinity born out of a place of extreme confidence, right? That's not it. It's like, oh no, I'm afraid of this and I'm afraid of that and I'm worried about this and I'm so insecure that I need to make sure I'm projecting out some kind of thing. And so it's really, really incredibly sad.
Yeah.
I've been trying to, like, recently, like I have a big job interview tomorrow and I have no idea what to wear. Like, because I have a bunch of like hand-me-downs that my girlfriend never wore when she was a boy that are like Abercrombie and Fitch blue and white checked shirts and blue striped shirts, and they just make me so sad.
Yeah.
Like, this is just the uniform. Like, you can see guys at a happy hour and they all are wearing this uniform of khaki pants and a blue shirt, and it deeply saddens me to try to dress to pass as a man, because I have flamboyant clothes and stuff, but when I wear them I usually get misgendered. So it's this balance I have to fit of like, how much do I care about what other people think of me, how much do I not want to seem like an NB or a fancy lesbian. And it's very sad to see myself go through this. And I think,
oh, honey, company's coming. Put out the fancy lesbians.
The ones with the U-Haul hats.
Put out the crystal lesbians.
God, the best ones. In high school, I remember I was so obsessed with that counter like culture, like everybody's doing this, so I'm not going to do this. And I would do very amazing things where every day I had to wear at least 2 kinds of plaid. That was a rule I gave myself. I made myself a prom dress that was like 3 different plaids, and then I wore 2 different sets of tights. It was honestly a great dress, but definitely was born out of, I know I don't fit in, so I have to visually make myself not fit in. And it was very flamboyant and weird, especially since I was dressing as a girl, and like, who knows what was happening in my head back then. But now I've, and then I went through the phase of like a colorful button up, and then, like a Travis McElroy inspired attire, but it's, to me, I'm at this point now where I'm like, when the beard grows in, I'm just going to start wearing crop tops and mini skirts again. Like, why not? It's a very weird world to try to navigate that. Like, what do I actually like? I have no idea right now. It's hard.
But can I tell you that that might be the most masculine thing to say about fashion.
Yeah.
I remember it was like a year or 2 ago, and I was like, I'm going to look and see like where men's like fashion is at and see like the trends that I don't know about. And so I was like searching for like, let's say 2022, the leading fashion trends, like, the edge of fashion for men. And I found a couple of like, reputable, like fashionable websites, right? And I remember on one of the like list things they did was like, try a white t-shirt and jeans. So and I was like, what the are you like, no, come on. Have you ever tried a pea coat? Okay, come on, guys. I'm looking for things that aren't like at TJ Maxx. I'm like, what is the thing I should strive for? Khaki pants are in. Like, it was so like, oh my God, like, can we have some options that like don't seem
like one notch higher?
Yeah, give me options so it doesn't seem like, oh, he's like trying to be sound. And she's like, no, I would like to dress up in a way that isn't just like, I put on the same black pants and a white shirt and a tie. And it's like, no, I would like some options beyond that, so at least I can like choose what it is. But most of the time, man, like, people, when it comes to, if you're like, I would like to dress up and be interesting, at some point, like, men's fashion was like, oh, wait, both?
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. Do you like silly ties? I can give you a silly tie.
Ties fill me with so much dread. What are we doing? Colin, what is your relationship with clothes?
Bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really like, because we were talking about fashion trends, and now like everyone, and especially in New York, people are dressing up their kids in like Gucci and shit.
Yeah.
So like there are actually more options for me as a result of that, because I like have to shop for like women's or kids clothes, because they don't do like extra smalls for men here a lot. But then like there's still things that don't fit me that well, and like that kind of thing. But like, yeah, like finding what was actually me, as far as like what do I actually like, and like just even just base like colors, because it's this paradox of like you're saying, there's that sometimes mentality of like I'm going to be counterculture, but also I need to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think points to this sort of self-defeating ideology of what masculinity is and has become, because like what you were saying, Travis, about how it's like you don't want to be seen as this thing, but then there's like also that simultaneous thought of like I hate that I know this, the Sigma male mindset of like just being like, he doesn't care what people think, he does his own thing, but also you don't want to be perceived as this way, and you want to be seen like this, and it's like you're just countering what you just said about how all of this works. And it's so steeped in insecurity in this like very like paper thin veneer of you have to be looked at this way, otherwise you're inherently less masculine and therefore have less value as a man.
I'm not getting the Sigma stuff served to my algorithm. This is the second time I've heard of it, both times on this podcast. This is more alpha than alpha. Is that the
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes, this is the alpha of the alphas. This is like alpha, but cool. Like James Bond is a Sigma, like that kind of deal.
Okay.
It's honestly what it seems like is, like when they come out with like a new line of G.I. Joes, and it's like, but now they're in like Arctic sneaky wear. And it's like, but I already have that G.I. Joe. Yeah, but do you have it in its Arctic camo? And you're like, oh yeah, sneaky wear. I couldn't think of the word camo. Anyway,
it's sneaky wear. Now.
Sneaky wear. I was just talking about this the other day of somebody called gis, like a jujitsu gi is like a costume. And I was like, I don't think they like that. I don't think they like it when you call it a costume. And then I was talking about like if you saw a Marine like in their camo and you said your makeup looks great, I don't think they would enjoy that very much.
It's like when people call sports practice rehearsal.
Yeah.
Very
halftime's intermission. Yeah. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's very good. All right, I have a listener question for us. We have discussed this a little bit. Comes from Duke. I identify as a man, but have many personality traits that are traditionally considered feminine. For example, being a nurturer, emotionally sensitive, empathetic, avoiding direct conflict. Would it make more sense for me to consider a non-binary identity, or is it more a matter that our definition of masculinity needs to change as a society?
So I am not an expert on gender or identity or anything like that.
But you are the only cis person here, so
that's fair. I can give you my gut answer, which is I don't think personality and gender identity should necessarily be considered in the same thing, because like I think it sucks that we have an idea in our head of quote unquote masculinity, but I don't think that should be right. So like if in your head you are comfortable in this gender, this is the right gender for you, then how you act beyond that, that's you as an individual. And I also, man, it would be way better if there were more dudes who exhibited those behaviors and personality traits that you just listed. So please join the team. Bring those skills in.
Trav Nation's team of
Trav Nation welcomes you. The more we could do that, because the thing is like, this is the other problem with like this alpha male, sigma male bullshit, is it's the loudest voices, and it's what's seen. Because like if you are a dude who is empathetic and nurturing and gentle and doesn't see conflict and all those things, you're not the one grabbing the microphone and loudly blasting your ideals and telling people they're wrong and that they should be more like you.
Yeah.
And
that's the goal of this podcast, is to yell at people, tell them they're wrong.
Well, it's fun. It's fun to yell at people. And so like the only way that that kind of thing changes is having a lot of people just demonstrating, modeling that behavior.
Yeah.
And I think that is there's so many problems. One of the myriad of biggest problems with toxic masculinity is the things that aren't toxic that actually would help improve quality of life for everybody, including men, get squashed down because of the things we've been talking about, right? Being seen as empathetic, being seen as nurturing, being seen as gentle. Like those things are some of the things that you're afraid to be perceived as. Yeah. And so those get tamped down. And God knows how many of the like alpha male toxic dudes we see that are like leaders in that weird space, how much that comes out of an internalized hatred and anger of the things about themselves that would make them good people.
That's very, very real. Colin, I'm curious, as you know, we've talked about your relationship with, or your lack of relationship with gender.
Yeah. So I feel like there might be overlap with you and me, Laser, as far as like that feeling of just like, hey, something's not right. Like I don't feel at home with this thing that I'm being expected to just be as. And with my experience of having dwarfism, I just wrote it up to that because I was like, well, this is the thing that is directly impacting how I'm experiencing the world the most. So,
and that is where the title of this podcast comes from as well.
Yes.
Of like, saying like people saying that you're not allowed to be a real man. And then you're like, psych, I'm not even.
But there's that, but there's that contrarian of like, when someone says you can't do a thing, well, you're like, well, I want that, even though I don't even know if I like it or not, because you said I can't do this. Yeah. But like,
it's the don't push the red button thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, now I want to.
Well, like I didn't even care about the red button until you pointed out that I couldn't do it. And I think there's this simultaneous rise of like the Sigma male thing with like characters like Rick from Rick and Morty and like the Joker and like all these like, you know, lone wolf, like not even the alpha of the wolf pack. You're doing your own thing. Like, but also you have to do this other things. And it's very weird. But to answer the actual question, I think with being non-binary, it's something either you feel inside or you don't. I don't think it's a thing that like, I think like Travis said, we need more role models of people that are cis men that are like exhibiting these traits and like that aren't unabashedly, you know, feeling these things and sharing these things with the world. If like, you know, you feel like something's, because I didn't know what it was, and then I saw the term agender, and I had that like little cog in the wheel moment of like, that fits.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, same for me too. Of like when I realized that I was allowed to be trans, you know, and that takes like a lot of things to unlock that. It's, you know, it's not like the first trans person you see or the first non-binary, but like if something clicks in your head that unlocks you, and like if that doesn't happen, you're probably fine. Like if you have this like thing that, you know, Dan last week and Travis this week are saying of like, I never questioned it. I don't know what that's like, but if that's the case, then great. If it's not the thing where like that feels better for me, I think you're right. It's like I consider myself trying to be a nurturer, you know, empathetic, like avoiding direct conflict is my favorite feminine quality. Like those are things.
Oh, wait, I do that. Is that okay? Like, I don't seek out direct conflict. Yeah. I'm not like, I'm going to bump into that guy. Though I have had dudes do that to me. And it's always so funny. This happened. I was at a convention and I was at like a tiki bar in like Portland or something with like some of the cast of Critical Role. Some dude, like clearly drunk, like kicked my foot and then tried to start a fight with me saying I was trying to trip him. And I was like, oh, no, you kicked my foot. It's okay. Don't worry about it. And he was clearly thrown off that was my response to it. And I was angry. He was like, what? You were trying to trip me. I was like, no, it's okay. Like, I think you just kicked my foot, but it's all right. Have a good night. And he was like, what? Oh, okay. Like, walked away.
It's completely deflated. Like,
yeah. Oh, I wanted to fight you, brother. I'm like, I know, man. I know, buddy. Have a good night.
That is such a fascinating male urge to me, is to like fight men that are like as big as you or bigger. Because I've never had that. Like I've never like and I've seen it though with my male friends who like have guys just like glare at them because they're bigger or whatever. And like, and there was an incident that happened recently where like I was on a job and like there were a few stunt people there, and this guy like was there as like some of the background extras, and then this other guy like showed up, and the guy came there with like 5 other people. They looked like they were in a biker gang. Like they were very sweet people. They were very kind people. I don't know if they were bikers or not, but like that was sort of the vibe. And this one guy who like showed up to be an extra by himself was like just decided to like pick a fight with him, but he did that in that way of like, oh, I'm just trying to be your friend, man. I just want to talk to you, bro. Like, what are you doing? And then like,
What?
and like I didn't, yeah, that was my reaction, because I was like, maybe they know each other. Is this a bit? Like, New York's small. I don't know how things work.
Yeah.
And then
New York
like,
is not small.
and the guy like was easily like 7 inches shorter than this guy, and like had at least 100 less pounds on him than the other guy, and was just trying to pick a fight with them. And I'm like,
All right.
dude,
No,
like
you just arm wrestle at that point, guys. It's okay. You can just arm wrestle and then kiss.
yeah. Well, and then he like flicked his cigarette at him, and like the smaller guy flicked his cigarette at the big guy, and then like the guy just laid him out on the floor. And
Okay.
and then he tried to get up again, and then the guy's friends like just grabbed him and were like, hey, you need to calm down, stop. Like,
This is a weird thing, right? I've seen this in fights and like in just male culture. I hated saying that, like through vomit in my mouth. But sometimes someone being bigger than you, like men will perceive that as antagonistic. Like, well, you're bigger than me, so clear. Like, how dare you insult me like that by being taller than me or whatever? It's like such a weird, like, how dare you insult me by being stronger than I? It's so weird.
yeah, like if I had that, I would just be miserable always. Yeah. Like I'm 4'3", everyone is taller, like virtually. Like it's
the only thing for me is like if someone's funnier than I am, but I don't have to worry about that. So like,
there you go.
It's never been a problem.
Totally safe.
I think to the question asker's point, I think that it's always funny and bizarre to me the trappings that will get associated with like masculinity. You could expand this out to a point of like ridiculousness, right? Mm-hmm. Where you get those people who are like, if you can't change a tire, you're not a real man. If you can't build a fire, then you're not a real man. And it's just like at a certain point, it's like, okay, but those things in reverse, it's always interesting to me, don't work. When someone's like, oh yeah, no, I'm transgender. I don't conform to the masculine. And they're like, well, I don't believe that. It's like, no, hold on. You were just saying over there before you were saying that someone's not a real man. It's like, yeah, but that's not true. Don't worry. That was a thing I was saying to bully you. Not actually a thing I believe. Don't you worry about this. Everyone should learn to change a tire, though. Yeah, it's very important. I'm very good at it. If anybody needs help, let me know.
I have a crew of it's not the fancy lesbians, but the extremely helpful lesbians, and they do that kind of stuff for me.
Like a pit crew?
Yeah.
You have a pit crew of helpful lesbians?
Yeah.
By the way, where's that in NASCAR? I'd love to see that pit crew. That would be incredible.
Oh my God. They'd be so good at it.
That'd be amazing. Are you kidding me?
We have a lot of great ideas for women-led shows that I think we should write.
Yes. Thank you. Please.
We know what's cool about women. I want to say one more thing about this before we go to the next question, which is I still don't know why. I think it's a testosterone, either an actual testosterone thing or a puberty thing. But when I started getting the good juice inside my brain, I do feel like I started thinking differently about my own thoughts and other people's thoughts that made empathy harder. Like, I think my brain has become more of a computer that believes that my thoughts and my opinions are facts. And instead of like constantly worrying about other people and what they might need and what they believe. And it does make me kind of be like, okay, I understand why some men might have a problem with empathy, because they think they're right because their brain is telling them they're right. I'm sure there is research on this, but it's fascinating to me.
Now, Laser.
Yeah.
You've just also clicked into a thing I've been thinking about over the past couple of years, which is the overlap, the relationship between like masculinity and neurodivergence, right? Because as someone with ADHD, I've lived my life thinking about that side of like, how do I find ways to build the things into my thought processes that aren't inherently there?
Yeah.
Right. So then thinking about like empathy like that,
Yeah.
right? Of like, okay, I need to figure out a way to like graft on prosthetic empathy. Right. And like, even now, like in the last like 14 years since I met Teresa, where I'm like I still to this day, 40 years old, don't always know where the line is between empathy and sympathy, where I'm like, no, I understand why that feels bad. And she's like, do you just feel bad that that person feels bad? Yes. Like, I understand that they feel bad. And it's like, okay, we're still working on it. But like trying to graft that on instead of just thinking, it's fine that I feel this way, right? I think that's the difference is like, yeah, man, maybe there's a difference in the way that it makes it more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But if something is more difficult, once again, the strongest thing to do is to work on it instead of just being like, well, it's more difficult for me to think empathetically, so I just won't alpha, right? Like that's the weakest option.
Yeah. All right. I have a next question. This is from Jam, which is a great name. Do you worry about becoming less approachable, more intimidating once you transitioned? Do you feel like how you're perceived has changed once you came out? What do you think makes somebody friendly, approachable / intimidating in public? And I love this question because I think about it a lot now. And I think that I talk to dudes about what does it feel like to be around women when you know they might be inherently scared of you.
Am I scary?
Yeah. Well, Travis, you and I have talked a little bit about like how to, especially because you're a public figure, like working hard to seem a certain way in public that isn't problematic and that isn't like I don't know if intimidating is the word, but like there is sometimes an inherent power dynamic when you are stronger and part of the patriarchy and that kind of thing. Is that something that that anybody here thinks about when it comes to like, oh, I'm a white guy approaching the world in a certain way,
1,000%.
Yeah.
It is a thing, especially like as I get older, right? Like that's a thing, right? I'm going to conventions and a lot of both people that I meet, other creators, and people that like come to my table are younger, right? Which is a thing to think about because there's a power dynamic there. When someone is talking to me and they're like 19 and I'm 40 years old, there's a power dynamic when I'm the creator and they're like the fan of the thing. There's a power dynamic like across the board. And even long before I was aware of like power dynamics and anything like that, I still want to seem approachable. I still wanted to seem gentle. And, I think a lot of it is one about the awareness of the thing and the mindfulness of that. And sometimes it's in the intention and response. Like this is the thing that I would hammer home for dudes every day. Like if you see like a woman out and about and you want to compliment something, one, compliment a choice that they have made, not inherent about them. Mm-hmm. Like that's a great shirt is a lot of different than you have great legs, right? Or something like that, where it's just like one, like, I love the color of your hair. You have beautiful eyes. Like, cool, man. Like that has nothing to do, unless they've dyed their hair, but it has nothing to do. They didn't make that choice. But like, that's an incredible necklace. Oh my God. Like that's a great jacket is a choice that they made and want to be complimented on. Yeah. Right. That I have a theory that there's something every day that everybody does where they're like, this is the thing I would like people to notice, whether it's like my favorite pair of earrings or this is the best pair of shoes I own or whatever.
A dude complimented me on my skin yesterday, which I've been working on a lot, and I'm still thinking about it. I'm like, thank you so much. I really thank you.
But then the intention of, are you complimenting because you want a certain response in return? And if you don't get that response, you're going to be weird about it.
Yeah.
Right. Are you complimenting to start a conversation? Are you complimenting because you want a reward for complimenting them? Then don't do it. Right. But if you're like, that is the coolest jacket I've ever seen, and I need to let this person know that that jacket is cool.
Yeah.
And then whatever the response, if they walk away, whatever it is, it's totally fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool, man. Go with that compliment. But to compliment someone because you want to start a conversation with them because you think they're pretty or because you want them to think you're cool or whatever, that's selfish. That's not a compliment. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't talk to people for that reason.
I think I'm finding a very weird balance of like, they tell you that when you transition from female to male, that the world cares about you a little bit less, which is true. Like, you're not just going to get approached and cared for, whatever, if something happens to you. I also think, and also people take you more seriously and believe you more. And part of me wonders if people just decide to opt into believing men because men are, well, I guess some men are more physically threatening. Like the risk in like telling a woman she can't have something is like she's gonna yell at you. A man could just like, in general pummel you or whatever. And so I try to be nice, and then I realize there's this dynamic of like me saying the same things, and I've said this on the podcast before to a woman. I like your jacket or something. I need to make sure to say that in a super gay way, or that lady is gonna think I'm hitting on her. And I'm not all the time, and I'm just like, how do we make this not weird? That's also probably a neurodivergent brain, but how do you have a conversation where you don't seem scary and you don't seem salacious and you don't seem, like it's a really interesting new math.
Well, it also is like you can't control the way someone responds to you, right? And so like that's why I think intention is so important.
Yeah.
Of just like if I'm like, hey, that's a great jacket, and that person gets weirded out and reacts like very angrily at me and walks away, and I look back at it and I'm like, was the thing that I was doing? Did I say so? Did I do that wrong? And it's like, no, that might just be like earlier in the day somebody complimented that jacket in a weird and creepy way. Yeah. And this is still resonating from that. And that's the other thing, man, of like once again, not to be all woe is me, but being a dude is hard. Of like when you're in that circumstance, it's not just what you're doing, right? It's every other interaction that person has ever had with dudes up to that point.
Yeah.
And like you might handle it in a completely nice way, right? And you might be the most normal way to handle it. And that person still gets upset, or it's still weird, or it's still whatever. That's because it's like they have a lifetime of baggage of dealing with other dudes. And you're just one of those dudes. And whether you want to feel special or not, right? You're just another human being, in this case, male, who talked to this person. And add on top of that, the aspects of maybe it's the worst day of their life. Yeah. Maybe like they're going through something, whatever. And it's, I think that all you could do, I have a tattoo down my arm. All you can do is all you can do in my mom's handwriting, because that's what my mom used to say to me. And the fact of the matter is like, if you're moving through life, trying not to be intimidating, trying to be gentle, trying to be complimentary for non-selfish reasons, thinking about your intention, thinking about your impact on other people, thinking about the interactions they're having in a mindful way. That's all you can do. You can't manage every single variable in the encounter. You can't control all of that. But I do think, man, one of the other really toxic hallmarks of like masculine behavior can often be like a lack of thoughtlessness of just like, I get to do whatever I want to do. And not even think about the impact that my behavior is having, or how this might change somebody else's thing, or the space I'm taking up, or all of that shit.
Yeah.
And if you can just start from there to be like, do I need to scoot over a seat? If I sit too close to this person, will they be weirded out?
Yeah.
Should I like not make eye contact with this person because they seem really bothered, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Like just thinking about things is already a huge step.
Yeah.
I think part of this, as well as like men are taught to have so many things be a means to an end or a competition. Like whether it's like behaving well will get you this thing. And they view interactions as a sprint to the finish.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's because that's what we're taught. We're taught to like, and that's what in media, like films, books, that kind of thing. Everything is like a building, like a dialogue tree in a video game. Like, okay, if I say this thing and I do this thing and then I do this thing, the sex will happen, romance will happen, something will happen, and I'll fill this hole of sadness that I feel because my parents told me I couldn't feel emotions, and the world tells me that I can't feel emotions.
Yeah. Don't cry. Don't be a pussy.
Nah,
this is why we need more NPCs in the world with like yellow question marks over their head that you go talk to, and they give you a fetch quest where it's like, go get me 10 bear pelts, and you bring them back and they give you 100 gold. Yeah. That's a level of accomplishment and satisfaction that we don't get in the real world. We need NPC fetch quests in the real world.
We do. That's what the world is lacking, is things that should have been emails.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And I've had this thought recently of like, in addition to saying and doing the things just for at face value, not as a recognizing the inherent value in the individual things that you're saying and doing, of like, I want to say this comforting thing because I want this person to feel comforted, not because I'm looking 5 chess moves ahead, but because I genuinely want this person to feel okay.
Yeah.
And being the type of person that doesn't just correct your language and say the thing that is now more polite and behaving in a way that's like is more empathetic and kind, but being the type of person that makes people feel safe.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do. It's hard to cultivate, especially if you're not used to that. And it's sort of a thing of like reevaluating why we're doing a lot of the things that we're doing, and like having that capacity to zoom out and say, I don't want to just be doing these things as a performative thing to get some prize at the end of a like trial or something.
Yeah, this is what I'm about to say is at face value dumb, because it references Muppet Christmas Carol.
But it's profound. If it does
there is a moment in Muppet Christmas Carol that always chokes me up, and it's at the end when Michael Caine, as the Ebenezer Scrooge, has had his change and he's going around and he's singing and he's giving stuff out to people, and he goes up to Bunsen and Beaker and he gives them the donation, and Beaker, and they say, oh, we wish we had something to give you, and Beaker takes off his scarf and hands it to Michael Caine, and the way Michael Caine says, a gift for me, of this moment in Scrooge's life where for the first time in maybe forever, he is being charitable and it without expecting things in return, and gets love back to him. Of like, for the longest time, the only way he's gotten things from people is by forcing them to give them to him, by forcing him to like, you got to pay me, you have to give me the shit. And for the first time, like, he was being kind and someone was kind back.
Yeah.
And that as like an exchange of like, he's surprised by it. He wasn't expecting it. He wasn't doing it for that. And the degree to which that touches him always gets me, because it's maybe the first time in his life Ebenezer Scrooge is like had that exchange where he didn't want something from them. They chose to give that thing to him. And that, like, to your point, Colin, I think that is a thing of like, when I started thinking about like the things that I could do to make more space for people in the world and to make people feel more comfortable in the spaces that I was in, to learn from feedback that I was getting from marginalized groups, all of that stuff. It started as, I'm going to do this stuff because I don't want people to be upset at me.
Yeah.
I don't like making people upset at me. And then as it went on and I saw other creators, in some cases, specifically refusing to, but not doing those things, I saw the juxtaposition of like, don't you see how that like makes that person feel excluded from this thing? And if someone did that to me, if someone said this way to me, if someone knowingly saying they could just like change one word, or the way they say, this is such a pet peeve. I hate when people say, ladies and gentlemen, just start to think, one, it's archaic. It sounds dumb. But two, just say folks. It's easier. Hey, folks, welcome. Folks, we're about to get started. Don't say ladies and gentlemen. Just dumb, too wordy, less efficient. Say folks. Folks,
it does feel good. As a queer person, you always notice when somebody includes you in something like that. At least I do. of like, ladies and gentlemen and others. Even that sometimes I'm like, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah. Even if you don't want to give up formal, you can just say distinguished guests or something. If you really want to like hammer that home, or just say y'all.
Friends, Roman countrymen, whatever you want to do, just get them all in there.
Sup, bitches, whatever.
But hey, players. That kind of thing. I think of like when you start doing something, and then you find like, oh, it feels better to do it this way. If this actually feels nicer, it's like, yeah, man. Maybe you didn't start doing it for the right reasons, but it's so much nicer to be nice.
Yeah.
As we talk about like neurodivergence and stuff like that, one of the hardest things for me is to understand that people think differently from me, and not like, oh, they have different ideas and opinions, but like their thought processes are different. So like what would be a decision for me isn't a decision for them. I look at people like Logan Paul, who has such a toxic relationship with like his fan base and like his fans and stuff. And I'm like, how do you sleep at night? How do you wake up in the morning? Like, how do you go throughout the day not just feeling like a complete piece of shit? And it's like, well, because he's not thinking about it the way I'm thinking about it. Yeah. I wouldn't be able to exist in that way. I don't know how he is, right? Like maybe he's not doing good, which wouldn't be a huge surprise.
I think there is like a privilege to be able to, especially be a creator and do it in a way like for a mission that uplifts, that makes you feel good. Like not everybody gets to do mission-based work. And I do feel bad for people whose like main goal is money. It's like, well, that's gotta suck.
Yeah. I think since we've touched on it a few times of like the compliment stuff, and I had the thought the other day that I'm sure probably other people have had as well, but if you're saying a compliment or doing a behavior out of expectation, you're making an ultimatum that the other person doesn't know about. And you're kind of too much of a coward to tell them that you're making an ultimatum. So you're saying, like, if you have a predetermined thing that you're going to do or say, if you don't get the response you're hoping for, that's just an ultimatum. Like you're saying like this thing, and if they don't react within the specific condition that you've set, you're going to get mad and possibly threaten them or worse.
Yeah. So it's a test. That's gross.
Yeah. Whenever people respond like, oh, it's just a compliment. Oh, it's like, I couldn't point to a specific thing, but I knew that's wrong. And that's like that. Cause I mean, I don't experience it in that way, but I still experience people commenting on my appearance. And then I have a choice to, if I respond in a certain way, but I might meet violence. And it's that thing of like, you're just making a demand, but I don't even think they have the critical thinking skills to understand that they're weaving this weird, like manipulative web. But it's, So I think
watch like videos of pickup artists where it's like ways to get a girl to give you her phone number, and you're watching it from the outside, like this is terrifying, right? Like you walked up to this woman who's like, 6 inches shorter than you and like 100 pounds lighter than you, and you're like over her being like, oh, come on. And she's like, well, I don't have a boyfriend. You're like, whoa, is he going to get Joe? Blah, blah, blah. Like, how do you not see that everything she is doing is trying to deflect? But it's that thing of like, they're not thinking about that. And that's so wild to me. Like, if I watch somebody's shoulders tense a little bit, I would move 100 feet away from them.
Please don't be mad. Okay. I want to say one thing, and then I want to ask a final question. We'll get y'all out of here. But first of all, I went to a wedding where the groomsmen's speeches was about how they got the girl through pickup artist means. And it was the most terrifying thing. I was like, this is my friend's new husband, and he's talking about the game and like anyway, horrifying. They seem happy. I don't understand. Okay. Here's my question for you both. Because I didn't think about this when I transitioned, and then I realized we actually have to spend time on our hair to make it look good. Drop the hair care routines, both of you, because you both have incredible hair.
Thank you. For me, my life with my hair has been about coming to terms with what my hair wants to do instead of what I want to do with it, and also understanding how hair works. Ooh. So like when I was young, in my 17th and 18th year, I wanted to look like Sean Hunter so bad.
Ooh.
I wanted that like Ryder Strong, Boy Meets World Sean Hunter hair.
Yeah.
But my hair, I didn't let it grow out long enough. So I wanted to kind of like it is now, right? Where it's like, long enough to run my fingers through and then it hangs down on the sides. But I never was willing to go through the process of growing it out.
Yeah.
And then was frustrated when it wouldn't do that look well.
Yeah.
And also coming to realize like my hair wants to stand up. And so I have two options. If I can have it short and it stands up on its own and I just kind of like do whatever with it, or I can grow it out for like 8 months if I want it to look like this.
Yeah.
It's also about finding the right product that goes with the right style to go with the right hair.
Yeah.
The short hair, you really have to think about product a lot more.
Yeah.
Because like I would say the length you have it now, wouldn't want to go with something like you don't want gel unless you want to look super spiked up and like early Matthew Lillard character.
Sure.
But I would say like a cream would work great, or maybe a pomade if you were looking for it to kind of slick back a little bit. But also leave-in conditioners, hair oils, I think would work very well for you.
Do you maintain the color? Do you overtone?
Yeah, I do overtone.
Nice.
And also I only like shampoo in the shower like once a week. And wash your hair with cold water. If you have dye in it, keep it in longer. And just in general, it's better for your scalp and better for your skin.
Yeah.
To like do cool water and not like hot water.
Yeah.
Or do hot water to open the pores, wash your face, and rinse in cold water to close your pores back up.
This is spoken like a man who has done some research, and I love it.
It's 40 years of wanting to be beautiful.
I have to say, I just Googled Sean Hunter because I forgot who he was. Y'all could play each other. You have a similar look. I hadn't really like
that means the world to me. Thank you.
I see a picture of him with the beard, and it's like, okay, he's going for a Travis thing. That's
now that actor Ryder Strong now is like a director and stuff, and has just aged like fine wine. That man has. And when they did Girl Meets World, he's appeared on quite a few episodes, and I believe he's directed quite a few episodes. And he's just one of those like child actors. Him and I'm forgetting the Ben Savage and Daniel Fishel, all three of them. And Will Friedle. It's like 4 child actors from Boy Meets World who like grew up to be like seemingly perfectly normal people.
Yeah. I wonder what happened. Colin, it's probably the first thing people have said about you when I'm around you.
Yes. Yeah. That's I had a moment on the train where I was like, this guy was like staring at me for a while. And then a break in my song happened because I was listening to music, and then I heard him say, "Excuse me," but it was like the 5th time he'd said it. And then he was like, "I have a daughter who's like you," and I was like, "Blonde?" And then but yeah, I have had a weird relationship with my hair and scalp because I had anxiety for a long time, and one of the symptoms of stress is like getting flaky scalp and like dermatitis and stuff. And so I used to pull my hair out.
And then at the end of science class, there would be like a little pile of hair.
I used to scratch the back of my head until it bled.
Oh yeah,
because I would get like nervous and just like do this and rub the back of my head.
I was a classic nail biter. But anyway, enough about all of our collective anxiety and CPTSD. So I put coconut oil in it when I go to sleep sometimes. I don't use conditioner in the shower. Like Travis said, I put in a leave-in conditioner while it's still damp after shampooing. I do have to shampoo 3 times a week because otherwise the scalp doesn't get good. But then like I didn't like washing it too much because then it would look frizzy all the time.
Yes.
So the medium that I found was using the leave-in conditioner every time right after I shower. And it's still not like completely wet, but damp. And then you like let it dry with that in it. And I also have a hair oil that I'll use sometimes.
Do you use? I have like this brush kind of thing that's like got like rubber points on it to like scrub the scalp. And I found a lot of use with that because like because I use product and everything, and I think it's called like folliculitis, and it's not fun at all, but it's like inflamed hair follicles in the back of my head. And so like I want to get it clean, but I don't want to like scrub at it with my fingernails. So I started using this like kind of soft rubber kind of scrubber to like do that and get it clean, I found that works really well for my scalp without irritating it, which is nice.
Yeah, I'll check that out because like I have the similar issue of not wanting to like irritate stuff. So
yeah. I will also say one last thing about my purple hair that I love. For whatever reason, middle-aged Black women will stop me no matter where I am or what I'm doing. I've had people yell at me from across the airport. Just like I'm walking there and like, I love the purple. And I'm like, thank you so much. It's so wonderful. I don't know why, but like without fail, the purple hair is probably what I get complimented most on. And the thing that toxic, like 20-something-year-old dudes want to give me shit about the most. Yeah. And I'm like, hey man, I don't know how to tell you this. This gets me more positive attention than anything you've ever done in your whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's an affirmation that you're doing it right if like the toxic people don't like it.
Yeah, right.
That's fair. That more for the what's the motto for the year? Do it.
Fuck the haters, embrace appreciators.
I love it. I had something like that when we would do Doubleclick shows of like play for the people who are smiling. You know, yeah. Just there's always gonna be skeptics, and they are never gonna like you. So why would you try to court them? They seem like jerks. Hey, Travis McElroy, thank you so much for joining us on the Not Real Men podcast.
Speaking of jerks, Travis McElroy, thank you for joining us.
Of irredeemable monsters. Thank you, Travis McElroy. You're the best. We, gender goals, you're a hero. All of the McElroy family is transition goals for somebody, and we absolutely love it. Thank you for joining us. Is there anything you would like to plug? I mean, everybody knows, hopefully.
We just started on Adventure Zone. The first episode, when we're recording this, the first episode of Adventure Zone versus Dracula comes out tomorrow. We've recorded the first 2 episodes, and it's the silliest one we've done in a long time. And I'm having so much fun doing it. Highly, highly recommend it to folks. Also, I've set a goal for myself this year to grow my Twitch channel. It's twitch.tv/the Travis McElroy. I stream Monday nights at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, Wednesday mornings at 10:30 a.m. and Thursday nights at 8:30 p.m. And I would say the pickles, the community that I've gotten there, the chill pickles, are without fail wonderful and delightful to be around. And I know that that's something people say about like their audiences and communities or whatever. But I'm there as a reason for them to hang out with each other and talk to each other. And very little of it is about me. And they're very, very wonderful. So if you want to come join us, it's twitch.tv/the Travis McElroy.
Fish cam.
I do have my fish tank cam on the time, and you can see I've also just recently added a plant shelf, this glowing beautiful plant shelf that you can see in the background, and all my beautiful fishes. They're beautiful idiots. I just put a second filter in there that's like a polishing filter, and it like creates a strong current, and they'll like swim into it and then just let it push them around and then come back for another ride. They're loving it, and they're complete idiots.
Amazing. Oh, amazing. Well, thank you so much for listening, everybody. And that's the end.